Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Esoteric and our continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA D10 Nano project. More specifically, in this instance, the Nintendo 64 core that everyone said was impossible until obviously it became very possible just recently. I've been running a lot of previews, a lot of viewer request tests, and a lot of core update videos, but I want to talk about just how far this core has come in such a short amount of time and take a little bit of a look back at where it started and why it's definitely not impossible. Before you get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But like 3 weeks ago, this is what Majora's Mask did upon boot. You would basically just be able to enter your name, and then the creepypasta would start. Link's face would pop up on screen, flash off, and then come back like a haunted movie. This was just 3 weeks ago. Majora's Mask did absolutely nothing. Now you can start playing the game on your MiSTer today with saves. It is not perfect, but this went from doing absolutely nothing except showing you a haunted Link to playing in game, and it's so fast of the progress on this core. It was long thought to be impossible that this was not something the MiSTer FPGA could handle, more specifically the FPGA chip itself and the amount of logic inside of it. Everyone thought the Nintendo 64 was too complicated and too complex to run on MiSTer, but Robert, or FPGAZumSpass, has clearly shown us it's not only impossible, it is very well likely that you're playing it right now after you watch this video. Or let's take a look at something like Super Mario 64. And this is what we first saw when it got in game, and it only got in game like 6-7 weeks ago as the time you're watching this video. You can tell it's Peach's Castle, but it is hyper distorted, has a pinstriping effect, and a lot of the textures are completely missing, and it's not running at full speed. This is what it looks like today if you boot this up on the MiSTer FPGA Nintendo 64 core. There's a Mario, there's full speed. He even has eyes in game now, which didn't used to be the fact whatsoever. But this is just a couple weeks worth of progress. It is wild. We moved back in between, and obviously we were better graphics and in-game, but the speed is not there whatsoever. That's because the CPU cache at this point in time had not been implemented yet. But we went from having no cache and no texture filtering to having a full cache with texture filtering. Bomb on Battlefield now looks like this, where before it looked like this. No cache, no filtering, and no fog effect whatsoever, giving it a totally washed out look. Now, another game that Robert focused on very early in the development was Mario Kart 64, because it is one of his favorite games of all time. This is how we first started playing the game, as a black box going around a recognizable but corrupted track with all of these textures missing. We then went to being a black box running around a track with no texture filtering, but it was more recognizable as an actual track in Mario Kart 64. This is the real-time evolution. This was only like 10 days apart. We then went to the track being fully playable, fully rendered, but you don't have the texture filtering, to going to a Mario Kart 64 that basically plays identical to real hardware. You'll see the texture filtering in play right here, and then we'll move to it without it being on. And the great thing is there is a toggle, but side by side you can see the difference between the texture filtering, between the cache. This game went from basically being an experiment of a black box running around a ring to being able to play. This is where the core got its start, rendering just a few demos and a few Hello World concepts. It basically showed nothing whatsoever outside of the proof of concept that Robert was actually working on the core. We got the first playable game. It was supposed to be by Christmas of this year. We got it back in July. It was Namco Museum, and that's because it only used the Nintendo 64 CPU and never actually touched the reality display processor or any other silicon in-game. You could play Galaga back then. You could now play Donkey Kong 64 in full speed, in some instances a better speed than real hardware, if you just download the core and play it today. Nobody saw the speed of this coming. We were testing these little fan demos here, and as they load up you can see everything is corrupted and nothing launched whatsoever. This was the reality of the beginning of the core, but it was only like 3 months ago that we were looking at this. Now you have something like Diddy Kong Racing being 100% playable, as good as original hardware. But again, if we take a look at Super Mario 64, this is the one that showed the most evolution at the start outside of Mario Kart. You can see Mario here in Bomb on Battlefield trying to get onto this platform. We have no graphics whatsoever, and it is very slow. This is the reality now. That same platform is right there. We're going to run by it, and it is running like a real Nintendo 64. I can't stress enough how quick this progress was and how impressive it is. Now, a lot of people thought this was going to be impossible because they thought the FPGA chip on the DE10 Nano was just not capable of running Nintendo 64. They didn't think it had enough logic elements, and it just didn't seem possible to people. Obviously, we know that's not true. It's so fun to see something that was declared impossible become probable and then become a reality on our screens and on our MiSTers in real time. Even something like Wave Race 64. Just like a month ago, this was the reality of this game. Yes, it ran, there was no CPU cache, all of the graphics are missing, and you had this polygon matrix over the water right here. This is the reality of Wave Race 64 if you play it today. It's running at full speed, all the graphics are there, the water looks correct. If this isn't real Nintendo 64 hardware looking, then I don't know what is, but leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think about it. But this was just basically 4 weeks from start to finish on the progress. That's how quick it moved. If we take a look at what Wave Race's intro looks like now, it is smooth, it is fluid, all of the water effects look correct, the fog is implemented, everything here looks exactly like it should. Compared to when we first saw it, this is what Wave Race did. The ROM would load up, you would start seeing a little bit of Nintendo 64 logo, we'd get a blue screen, and then it would 100% freeze. These are only like 5 weeks apart. Or let's take a look at something like Star Fox 64 to show you what it looked like before we had texture filtering to where we currently are today. This is Star Fox 64 running at full speed, but it doesn't have any of the texture filtering. If we move over to a different version of the capture, you're going to see that texture filtering is going to come in and everything smooths out. And my favorite part, a lot of people really wanted to see this, and it is in the current core. You can pause the game, you can go into the core menu, and you can turn texture filtering on or off. You'll see the pixelation come in and go out of the game. I think it looks good both ways, and it's so amazing we have options. In certain instances with the ground here, you can see that massive pixelization, and maybe it doesn't look good, but you can immediately go in and turn it on. The game went from running full speed to having texture filtering in like a week and a half, maybe even less than that. And this is where Star Fox got its start, a very slow title screen with huge graphical corruptions. I just can't stress enough how quick the evolution of this core has been. I've been doing MiSTer videos for almost 3.5 years now, and I have never seen a core be introduced to go to running like this so quickly. It feels like we're 80% of the way to an actual Nintendo 64 on MiSTer, and in some games it feels like we're already there. And this is what it used to be like playing Super Mario 64 on one of the first cores, and seeing this, we were all super excited and impressed. It then went to something that looks like this. You have no eyes as Mario, but you can run around the game. The speed is getting a little bit better, and then we have more levels running, but of course we still don't have that texture filtering in. Today you can play the game with eyes, with texture filtering, with CPU cache on. You can even play the 2-player fan ROM of this game, adding Luigi in. It is nonsensical how quick this has gone. So many people have made a meme out of the progress of this core, and I get it. Now, as of the recording of this video, we still need to talk about what doesn't work and what needs to come. TLB is a virtual memory addressing system that some games on the console use, and currently it is not implemented. So games like GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, those titles are not going to run quite yet. That's going to be coming later, and Robert says he has no idea when he's going to start because he's got a lot of things to work on. This was Banjo-Kazooie like 3.5 weeks ago. It is pixelated, there's issues in the graphics, it just looks like a mess for being amazing. This is what Banjo-Kazooie looks like if you load it up on the current core today. It's running at full speed, and this looks exactly like the game would look if you just plugged a cartridge into your Nintendo 64, grabbed your controller, and started playing. And because we have clean, upscaled HDMI out, this is going to look a lot better than your Nintendo 64 on a modern television, unless you have the Ultra HDMI mod installed. It's just wild, it looks perfect, I can't believe it's gone this quick, but it's been so much fun to cover these evolutions. And everyone seems to really be enjoying watching the video, so trust me, as more things happen, I will keep updating them as the updates come. But we're playing Banjo-Kazooie on MiSTer, and you can beat it, you can see the credits today. Just a mere 3 months ago, we were looking at a Hello World title on the core, and we were so excited to see it. We've gone from Hello World, just basic text on screen or a test, to being able to see Ocarina of Time running as close to real hardware as is possible for a core that is not finished. It is insane. I can't believe it's moved this fast. But that's the evolution so far on the Nintendo 64 core from the day it started with that Hello World or test menu on the screen to where we currently are. And at the speed of which this is moving, I'm sure we're going to be even further along in a week or two. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Tell me what games you're playing for Nintendo 64 on MiSTer, and tell me what the one game that doesn't run yet is that you're so much looking forward to. Short of that, I'll have videos throughout next week, including a ton of MiSTer, so stay tuned, but I'll see you next time. Bye bye.